Hey TDA, and welcome back to Timberborn. This time around I am going to expand away from my wooden facility over here, and I'm going to bring some metal to the mix. And that metal is either going to come from over here, but I think this side over here, you can see I've already built a road to that, it's a little bit closer. And these are the ruins of humanity from the looks of it. So yeah, let's do what they did and start working with metal, and nothing can go wrong with that, right? In order to do that, I am going to need a couple more beavers, I think. We could probably reassign a couple of the beavers I already have from other assignments, but, you know, I have plenty of food, 2,500 food to be exact. And the reason I don't have any more is because all my storage is pretty much filled up. Not everything, and for example, sunflowers, as you can see, are pretty much being consumed as we're producing them. It's one of the things that we're producing the least of, but, you know, everything else is pretty much completely stacked up. Oh, actually, we do have sunflower seeds. Why do I have two of these? Well, anyway, I stand corrected. The main thing, though, I wanted to say is that I am going to redesign my area over here a little bit. Yes, I am going to take out those rooftops, terraces, and I'm going to expand and put another layer on top of this. So while this is building, I was actually thinking, I was initially thinking maybe to get the metal over here because it's relatively close to my base, but I do have all my power lines set up over here, and I have a nice little bit of open space there. So I figured, well, then in that case, I might as well go and grab the metal from the northern side. I'm not sure, is this north? I don't know, but at least it's kind of like where I'm building all my stuff anyway, so I can maybe utilize this area over here to set up my metal production. So, step one, I built myself a nice little path along with the bridge. Look at that, that's just beautiful. And now I have two scavengers trying to get some scrap metal out of these rooms. Now this is actually limited, so I'm not entirely sure what we're going to do with this long term, but it looks like that there's going to be plenty of scrap metal for the moment. And as my beavers are going back to work to get myself some scrap metal, so they can actually start depositing it here, I'm gonna set up a smelter to make sure I can actually transform that metal into something usable. Now there is an infinite way of getting metal going. This is by using a mine that costs an insane amount of resource to unlock, but yeah, you can easily get, well, not easily necessarily, you can get an infinite amount of metal, but we'll need some underground ruins. I haven't actually seen those yet on the map, though I'm not entirely sure what I'm looking for. Probably not that. This maybe? Yeah, okay, so sources like that is an infinite way of getting metal going. That is like on the other side of the world, though. Is there anything like that closer? Let me check for a moment. Oh, yeah, actually, we have an underground ruin over there as well, which is not close, but I think it's at least more easy to reach that one in particular. There's another one over there. Yeah, so long story short, plenty of iron on the map, but that's like the end game version of getting that. Let's start with the early game version by smelting some of the scrap metal into usable metal. Okay, note to self, don't forget to open the floodgates again once the drought is over, because otherwise you'll drown all the people in your village. But yeah, luckily they're beavers, so they're not too worried about a little bit of water, but the buildings actually stop working once they're underwater, so yeah, that was a little bit my mistake, but the floodgates should be open now. Let's open them a little further to speed this process up. My crops don't really like being underwater though, so yeah, that's a thing. Should probably just lower them completely to make sure I can drain my lands as quickly as possible. There we go. Oh, the potatoes and stuff are actually just fine with that. And then we can erase the floodgates once again to a normal level. With that metal, there's several things we can do now, but the first and the most exciting thing I want to try is build some robot beavers. In order to do that, we are going to need quite a few different things. First of all, we're going to need to build a refinery that is going to produce fuel for those robots. Now, as you can see, it mostly takes in different types of water and foodstuffs and then turns that into fuel. If we can get into that late game phase where we're actually using bad water to transform that into useful things, we are able to make something that looks like it's an improved type of fuel. I'm not entirely sure. But first things first, let's just get the refinery up and running. This thing actually doesn't seem to require power, while the factory that's going to produce the actual bots definitely does need power. So I am going to put this one all the way here to the side. Since we're going to need water here as well, and I don't want to drag it in all the way from the other side of my base, I am going to set up a large water pump. This is an improved version of the pump that's actually going to produce way more water in a way faster way. And this one is going to be set up over here, I think. Let me think about this for a moment. I could actually set it up over here. Maybe I do need to get rid of some of those trees. Actually, it fits quite nicely over there. There we go. That looks pretty nice and tidy. And then all we need to do is put in a road like so. And then we have a nice amount of water coming in as well. Now, of course, we need somewhere to store all that water. Maybe at this point I can build a large tank. Pretty expensive, honestly, but you know, we're nearing the end game now, so we might as well invest a little bit in building all of this. Now, this is going to take a minute to build because we do need a fair amount of metal to actually build these buildings. But yeah, the first one is up and running already. Why are you complaining? Oh, you don't have a recipe. Oh, we actually need to pick. Well, what do I have the most of? What is this? This is Spetter Dock. It seems that we are producing way too much of that, so let's make biofuel out of that. Speaking of which, I also need a place to store all my biofuel, so I might as well do that right next door as well, so I have plenty of that fuel to go around. And with that up and running, I am now collecting healthy amounts of biofuel. I'm not sure how healthy this is, but anyway, I am going to need to set up a bot part factory to make bodies, limbs, and heads. Makes sense, and we need 4 limbs, 1 head, and 1 body. I think that's a nice detail in order to make 1 bot. And I don't really think, do I need 3 of these factories? That seems like a bit of overkill, but let's see how large these are. They are pretty large. We could fit in 1, 2, 3, and then the assembler. How large is that? Actually, yeah, it fits quite nicely. Yeah, let's just do it like that. It's a little bit of overkill, but that should work just fine. I'm also going to connect the power, of course, because otherwise none of this will actually be doing anything. And we need to make sure we set the recipe. So we have 1 making limbs, 1 making the other. I'm actually not going to store this stuff up with because I don't want 200 limbs or something like that. That's kind of weird anyway. But I do want to make sure that I can just keep producing bots, because I don't think we can have too many. Well, we probably can have too many of those if we don't have enough fuel, but at that point they will just fall still and not do anything. However, this is all going to require quite a bit of power, so let's look into our power situation once again. So I'm considering to add some more windmills to the mix, although I could definitely easily produce some more power with these water wheels as well. I'm probably going to do that in addition to what I'm thinking about right now. However, I really like the idea about these gravity batteries. These can actually store energy. As you can see, there's 10,000 horsepower potentially stored up in one of these. And whenever we're requesting more than we're demanding from the system, these will be drained. The little rock over there is going to drop to the ground. It's pretty high up, so that should have a pretty nice influence on my production. And every now and then I'm producing more power than I need. So whenever that happens, these things will start charging up, and then whenever the, for example, drought comes and we don't have enough power, these will start discharging. Just make sure that I have the supply and demand a little bit more equalized over time in my factories. What's really nice about this system as well is that during the night when no one is working, the demand of the system is really low. So if the wind energy and the water energy at that point is working, that means that these gravity batteries just restore their charges by default, just by sitting there and taking advantage of the fact that the beavers are sleeping. So between this additional, it might be a little bit overkill here, but between this additional wind power and, if I need it, the additional water power, I think we should be able to keep the machines running 24/7, at least as long as any beavers are awake. And now we have all of that power, I definitely need to start upgrading my gear and plank production, because I can't keep up with the speed that I want to build stuff at. And I have plenty of beavers not doing anything, so might as well put them to work. What's also interesting to note is that actually the main bottleneck that I seem to have now is logs. My oak farm over here can't quite keep up with the demand, and part of the reason is that I didn't actually plant any of this stuff. So I added in a second forester, so I could pretty much just double up on the size of my oak forest, and hopefully that should be able to make sure that I don't run out of logs anytime soon again. Now, at the same time, part of the reason is just because I'm trying to build a lot of stuff in a very short time, and I've been stacking up on logs for a very long time. But yeah, if you try to spend probably like something like 1,000 logs plus in a couple of days, then you are going to run out one way or another. And while I'm at it, I might as well just add some more lumberjacks over here on this island because, you know, I need all the logs I can get. So it took a minute, but I am now constructing my first bots, and as you can see, I have 2 of them that have nothing to do. Now, in order to put these to work, apparently I need to unlock that, so that's where all the additional science comes in. And considering my bottlenecks right now, I figured, well, why not just make them work, for example, in the lumber mill or in the gear workshop. For whatever reason, I need to unlock that with science, but let's go ahead and do that, and that seems to apply to all of them. So yeah, and then I can just say, well, let's have a bot work here. And we have 2 of those, so all our gears are now being made by bots. Seems appropriate, but yeah. Now I'm actually wondering if they will keep working throughout the night as well, because bots don't need sleep, right? And it seems the answer to that question is very much yes. As you can see, all the other beavers are going to go home and go to sleep. Everything else came to a halt, but my gear workshops are still working. The interesting thing is you can actually have bots making bots as well, and that is actually pretty efficient because they will keep working around the clock. And it's efficient for any building, honestly, but this is kind of funny to have the bots make bots. And if I add bots to all of these facilities over here, then that would actually be just bots replicating themselves into infinity as long as I have resources. Another particularly useful thing is to replace your workers with bots, because that means that these things will keep building around the... Hey, look at that, this is a little... They're actually kind of creepy if you ask me. Look at that, let's pause there for a moment. These things are so creepy. Anyway, but that means they will just keep building around the clock. And yeah, it's kind of disconcerting, honestly. All those blue lights popping up on my buildings here and there. That means that those are being manned by bots. And on the bright side, that means that my beavers themselves have less and less to do, so they don't need to work as hard. With these long-term workers, I was thinking, well, maybe we could do something more fun, because this is the big lake where my initial source of water comes in. And I've built a couple of extra dams here now. So if I do something like this, let's put this up to 195. Let's also make sure this is at 195, yes. And then if we raise this all the way up to, let's say, 190, that should mean that this entire area starts filling up with water. There we go. It's slowly going up. And that means I have a massive additional reservoir of water over here that I can use during long-term droughts. There we go, working like intended. There's a huge amount of water in there now. Something else I've done over here is adding in some of these small tanks with some biofuel, just so my bots have an easier time recuperating if they need some additional energy, rather than having to run all the way back over here. I have plenty of biofuel to go around, so that's not a problem. But yeah. Also, it's worth noting that it's always best, I think, to have the bots work in distant locations. So, for example, if I unlock this specific thing, the scavengers for the iron, or the scrap metal, I should say, obviously them working over here is a lot better than my normal beavers having to walk all out of there every day because they need to go back to sleep, get food, water, etc., etc. Making sure you have these long distance locations worked by bots is, generally speaking, I think the best way to move forward. With all these beavers not doing anything, I might as well start producing a little bit additional science, because unlocking all those positions costs a lot of science. So by doing it like this, we can literally double up on our science production. And in case you're wondering, yes, you can also have the bots research for you. That is really expensive, but I do have enough science for that already. So as soon as I get 4 bots, because it does seem to be the case that you need either all bots or all beavers, I will be replacing the beavers in this facility by bots and have infinite amount of science flowing in. So a little bit of a time jump here of about, I don't know, 5 cycles or so, and we are in a Utopia state, you could say. I have 77 bots now working pretty much every job that my beavers used to do before. The only reason 27 of them are still employed, I think there's like 20 of them that are haulers right now, just because I figured you might as well do something useful. But yeah, at this point it's pretty much impossible, I think, to lose the game. If I really wanted to optimize things, I should probably start tearing down the homes of my actual beavers. So I don't need to produce as much food anymore, I don't need to bother with as much water, etc, etc. Because honestly, at this point, the beavers are just a burden. They're just soaking up stuff that I could be spending on something else. But yeah, I'm not gonna do that. This is just way too pretty to tear down. But it's the interesting dev choice, I guess, to make mechanical beavers better than the actual beavers. But yeah, I'm making those beavers very happy, by the way. So I've built pretty much every single building in the game that makes them happier, like the Agora. We have a ride here. There's a lone beaver dancing there. Oh, look, his friend will join him. I have detailers, which is basically, I guess, the tattoo shop version for beavers. I have a mud pit over here as well. This looks really comfy, by the way. Look at that. But yeah, I've also built another wonder. I have a mine up and running now, so that means we have infinite... No, it's not up and running, actually. It's almost up and running. But once it is, we will have infinite metal as well. And all of this is just a matter of time. And speaking of time, this is where the huge time jump comes in, because all of this took an insane amount of just sitting here looking at the screen amount of time. Mostly because you can't just idle and walk away from your screen, because there's bad tides, there's droughts and stuff like that. That honestly I could have started to automate as well. I didn't really do much with these sluices yet and things like that. That I think you can, if you install them properly, I can actually kind of automate that as well. But at that point, you actually automated the entire game. Which could be a goal. I mean, don't get me wrong. But still, not really what I'm looking for. I did notice that actually these bots are not immortal, so they do break down. So I am currently trying to replace most of the bots that I have. I decided to rebuild my second bot assembler. I had 2 of them at some point, but I took 1 of them down because I was like, I don't really need 2 of them because I have so many bots now. It does seem that you kind of like level out at around 75 bots if you have a single one, just because of the breakdown speed versus the build speed of these things. Other than that, I'm not really sure what there is to add. I built the last couple of buildings, and now we have a centrifuge to turn bad water into useful things. We have a mud pit as well. I'm actually pumping up the bad water over here from this zone where it's actively spawning. And at this point, if you want to continue building, you definitely can, but it feels like it's pretty much just doing the same thing over and over. So I think this is where we're going to end this particular series. I had a lot of fun, don't get me wrong, and I can really see the appeal of trying to redo this in different maps and difficulties maybe. We have the different race unlocked as well. I mean, these guys are extremely happy. I think the maximum amount is probably something like 70, 75. I don't have books yet, which honestly I could make right now. The Earth Recultivator is just a super expensive wonder, but I could actually be building that, and as you can see, I have literally everything else. So yeah, all in all, pretty fun game. If you haven't tried it yet, I can definitely recommend it. I was not bored for most of it, maybe at the end a little bit, but other than that, it's really fun, and these beavers are just amazingly fun to watch. If you're still here, you are awesome, and I do hope to catch you in the next one, because next week we're going to be focusing a bit more on Modemancer.